The Atomic Voodoo Lounge podcast is proud to present an interview with best-selling author Rob Hart. I'm Maxwell Vegas, your host, and back in episode 2, we aired an interview with Rob Hart. With a variety of genre-slipping books behind him, he's looking forward to 2026 with the publication of Detour and 3 Hitmen and a Baby. As we approach 2026, it seems like now is the perfect time to revisit that interview. We have the distinct pleasure, honor, and privilege of speaking with somebody who knows quite a bit about writing and beauty and magic and fight scenes. The one and only Mr. Rob Hart. Rob's novels, including the breakout novel The Warehouse, the time-bending mystery The Paradox Hotel, and the USA Today best-selling Assassins Anonymous, are known for page-turning plots mixed with relevant social commentary on such things as capitalism, high-tech, and morality. Rob crafts high-concept genre-blending thrillers, often with speculative and sci-fi elements. He has a background in journalism, political communications, and publishing, and most recently, Rob jumped into the higher education ring as a professor at Seton Hill University's Writing Popular Fiction MFA program. Hart's The Medusa Protocol was published in the summer of 2025 as part of his Assassins Anonymous series to glowing reviews. Ray Palin at bookreporter.com says the Medusa Protocol contains stories that are worth telling and savoring. And publisherweekly.com says Hart triumphs with this deliriously enjoyable sequel to Assassins Anonymous. So without further ado, the Atomic Voodoo Lounge podcast's first ever guest, Mr. Rob Hart. Rob, thanks for being here. First off, since this is a lounge, what's your favorite drink to order when you're out on the town or simply relaxing at home?
Oh, man. I mean, I'll never say no to an old-fashioned, but, most of the time I'm just drinking straight whiskey, and I prefer rye.
What were your thoughts on that Writer's Tears whiskey?
It's good. It's good. You know, the name just feels a little cute.
Well, that's why I picked it up.
No, it's a solid drink.
I prefer bourbon over Irish whiskey.
Yeah. And look, like, I'm Irish. I love a good Irish whiskey, but yeah, there's something about a good bourbon that just really does it for me.
Now, let me ask you, since we are in the heat or midst of summer, what's your ideal summer day look like?
Oh, man. I mean, ideally, I would have a day where I didn't have to do anything, which is, exceedingly rare. I mean, I love hanging out with my daughter. If we can go to like a water park or go see a movie or something, that's just fun. I also am a big fan of hanging out at my friend's bar in the West Village and just sitting out front and drinking and hanging out with him. And he's like the dog mayor of the neighborhood because he gives all the dogs treats. So you just sit there and a parade of dogs just comes by to hang out with you. And it is a good way to spend a day.
Well, speaking of the summer, how was it having Assassins Anonymous be chosen for Barnes & Noble's mystery thriller pick for the month of June? I mean, how exactly does that happen? Did you have input into it? Did they contact you first? Was it just like lightning out of the blue?
Oh, it's totally like lightning. And look, this is the thing about publishing that is so frustrating, is the things that really move the needle, that can really change your stars, you have no control over. None whatsoever. It's just, you got to kind of hope that things come together. And that is just, I've been doing this for a long time. I've written a whole lot of books. That is, the right person read it, showed it to the other right person, and they all agreed, okay, let's do this thing. And there was an element of timing involved where the sequel was coming out at the end of June. And they sometimes like to do things like that where they kind of group things together.
Yeah, it seemed
I couldn't, everyone wants that.
Yeah.
That's what, everyone wants that deal because we sold 30,000 books in the course of a month, which is insane.
Congratulations, yeah.
But yeah, you can't plan for it. You can't account for it. It's like, if you want to sell books, you got to get picked by Oprah or Reese Witherspoon, or you have to have something like this happen, or get into a book club, or any number of these things that, again, you just cannot control.
Well, I'm sure that directly influenced the Medusa Protocol, which came out right after that.
I mean, it seems like it. The book is selling pretty well so far, and Barnes & Noble is still, I think they probably ordered more copies than they would have initially. Because, everyone's putting in an order for, the airport system orders how many, and Target orders how many, and Walmart orders how many, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So, I figure Barnes & Noble's order is probably a little bit bigger, which is great. But other than that, I'm trying not to look at it too closely because I want to maintain some level of serenity this summer.
Right. Well, since I deal with memory and identity and the convoluted paths that create us, can you recall the moment the ambition to write first took hold of your young brain?
Oh, man. Weirdly enough, I kind of can. I feel like I was reading Survivor by Chuck Palahniuk. I was in college, so I was probably like 18, 17. And I was sitting in my bed in my dorm, and I was reading this book, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know books could do this. This is dope. Maybe I should do this.
Yeah.
And it feels like that was the whole, like that was kind of the decision point. I was initially in college as an art major. I was doing graphic design and fine art and stuff. And then it turned out that was not for me. It's like sometimes you get there and you realize like, oh, this was fun until someone was telling me what to do, and now it's not fun anymore. So I switched over to journalism, thinking at least like I can make a couple of bucks versus like a creative writing, bachelor's degree. But it was so around when I was like 18 or so.
It's crazy. Like pacing, luck, experience, planning all seem to play key yet inscrutable roles in a writer's life. Are you where you want to be right now as a writer? Do you feel like you're trying to catch up or branch out?
I don't think anyone is ever feels like they're where they need to be, because there's always, first off, there's always an opportunity to learn and grow, but there's also always an opportunity to kind of, there are things that I want that I haven't gotten yet.
Right.
And I want to get those things. So I'm going to, but then I'm going to get those things and I'm going to decide on something else that I want. Like it's a very sort of, it's a weird industry in the sense that there's no final boss. There's no moment when it's like, I won, I'm finished now.
Right.
It's just, the top of every mountain is the bottom of another. So, I'm happy. I'm deliriously happy to say that I'm a full-time writer. So, I'm not sitting in an office right now wearing a suit, making some asshole rich. So I get to spend more time with my daughter. I get to, spend time going to the gym and sleeping in if I feel like it. And, I'm published and I'm vertical. Those are the two things that really matter. So,
Right.
I'm pretty happy. But yeah, of course, there's always more stuff that I want to try for.
Now, you've often said that younger writers, newer writers should start with smaller presses rather than jump into the major leagues.
It's not bad getting picked up by a big publisher on your initial book, but I think that the stakes are a little bit lower with a smaller press,
Yeah.
Because the thing is like, it's a tough game. It's a tough game because when art meets capitalism, things start going sideways, and if you don't,
Sure.
you might get paid a certain amount. If you don't earn back that much, it's going to follow you. If you're with a smaller press, because you've got a smaller hill to climb, you can make a bit of a name for yourself, build yourself a reputation with reviewers, with readers, and just kind of learn how the process works, like what it's like to work with an editor, what publishing timelines look like, because these are all things that, aren't really intuitive and frankly, half the time make no sense. So it's really good to start kind of cutting your teeth on that a little bit so you can just kind of have an idea of what it's going to be like.
Now, you've got a lot going on genre-wise across your work. Speculative, sci-fi, thriller, noir, social commentary. What is it about those elements that attracts you? And was that the plan all along, or did you simply start with a story or premise and then let the genre elements come later?
I mean, it's interesting. That's a big question. Because on one hand, like, I just want to write whatever weird thing I want to write, like whatever is most interesting to me in the moment. So I don't I don't think about genre labels. Like, I really don't care about them. They're for the people who work at like Barnes and Noble, and they're for like the people who work in publicity and marketing, so they can figure out which magazines to send you to for reviews.
Right.
I don't sweat that kind of stuff. I mean, there is kind of like a through line in that in my books, the wealthy and the elite and the billionaires are always going to be the bad guys, because that's just how I kind of view the world. But yeah, it's just I'm generally attracted to whatever is most interesting to me in that moment. I'm working on a sci-fi speculative series right now that I'm co-writing with somebody, but then I'm also working on a YA fantasy book for my daughter, which is first time I'm doing YA, and that's the first time I'm doing fantasy. And it's a little scary because it's like these are not things that are super familiar to me, but it's also really, really fun.
Now, The Warehouse takes on some big issues: consumerism, capitalism, and the effects of consumerism and capitalism on society, but also on the workers within that society. Where did the germ seed of that story come from?
I can tell you exactly what the seed was. It was I had read a story in Mother Jones called I Was a Warehouse Wage Slave. And it was about a reporter who goes and gets a job at one of these fulfillment centers just to kind of like see what the deal is, and how miserable of an experience it is, where it's like they're really treating you like chattel. It's like, you call out sick, you're fired, because they've got a game plan. They set up these fulfillment centers in economically depressed areas. So it's like, they can fire you for anything because there's 30 people lined up around the block waiting to fill your slot. And, I read that back in 2012, and I was like, oh man, there is a book here. There's absolutely a book here. And it was very much coming from a place of like feeling like late stage capitalism is starting to metastasize in a really, really dangerous way. And it took me a while to crack it. I mean, I didn't really start writing the book in earnest until 2016, and then it came out in 2019. So yeah, it was, I wasn't a good enough writer to start writing it when I first got the idea. I kind of had to like sit on the back burner and percolate for a little while.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's, that was a fun book to write.
Now, when you say you weren't a good enough writer at that point, what do you mean by that?
It was a big, complicated book because it was a thriller, but it was also meant to be, kind of satirical, but kind of a polemic, but kind of, it's just dealing with a lot of really heavy issues. And the thing is writing a thriller is, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's a lot easier than writing a thriller that also has to be about social and economic issues, because then you're trying to thread that line between, like, you're trying to make like weird capitalism stuff like interesting for a reader while maintaining momentum, while maintaining interest. And so it's a hard balance. Plus, I was dealing with multiple POVs, which I had never written before. So I'm trying to balance like a big world building. I'm basically like, for that book, I had to create a city out of scratch, which was also a bit of a challenge. So I just kind of focused on the books I was writing at the time, which were these kind of like punk rock noir books, because they were simple. It was one character, it was one POV, it was first person present. And it was a little bit closer to my voice. So there was a bit of ease there in terms of putting it together.
Yeah. Now, in your writing process, you're a big fan of outlining. Not everybody is. Can you give us one tip or a piece of advice about outlining that you find useful?
Something I will sometimes do with outlining is that I will scratch out, like, really briefly what I think the course of the story should be, kind of like a bullet list of this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, and then I'll delete it. I'll get rid of it. Yeah. Because especially in the beginning, you're still trying to work this stuff out in your head. And I think you kind of need space to let it sort of sit. But that's the thing. It's funny. People tell me, I don't want to outline because then I lose like the element of surprise in my story, and it's sort of like, why would I want to write it if I know where it's going? And I always find that, like, no matter how much I outline, I still along the way find stuff that I didn't really expect. And yeah, those moments are amazing.
Rob, you're of a particular age where you've got one foot in an almost pre-digital age and the other in a world where the warehouse, for instance, could actually exist, if it doesn't already. Do you think your writing has been influenced more by reading or consuming other media like movies, TV?
I think it's a little half and half, right? So I was always a big reader. I'm still a big reader, and in terms of like craft and voice and stuff like that, like yeah, books are hugely important. In terms of my ability to kind of reach a reader and appeal to a reader, I think other forms of media are really useful. You know, I've done pretty well with the Assassin's Anonymous book so far. And Assassin's Anonymous is, you know, what if John Wick got into a recovery program for killers, which is probably the best elevator pitch that I'm ever going to come up with. But the thing is like, you know, people automatically get that. They know exactly what kind of book they're getting when I say that.
Right.
And so having that kind of like, you know, movie reference ability, I think is really helpful. Plus, I like to write action, and I think I'm decently good at it. And I think a lot of that comes from like growing up on a lot of kung fu movies, a lot of Asian cinema, because Asian cinema handles action very differently than American cinema, where you've got like, you look at Matt Damon in The Bourne Identity, where they're using like smash cuts and shaky cam, and like you can't really see what's going on because he's not a trained martial artist, versus when you're watching like something Jackie Chan did, you know, 20 years ago.
Yes.
And, you know, he is. And that's why the camera's back wide and they're single long tracking shots, because he can actually pull those things off. So just, you know, from that perspective, the ability to kind of like understand how to convey action in a clear and concise way that's also going to be exciting to a reader, you know, it all like, you know, everything that you consume is sort of like is feeding into that.
Now, through the grapevine, I've heard that you've trained in some martial arts. And what I'm wondering is, has that training influenced your writing practice in any way, in addition to giving you content to fill books with?
I mean, right off the bat, I love that there's a grapevine about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I trained in Krav Maga for years, and then currently I'm doing Muay Thai. And yeah, absolutely, there's a lot of overlap there, because it teaches you a lot of really useful stuff. First off, like really basic things about like geography, like what a fight actually looks like and feels like. Not to say that I'm out getting in street fights or you know, crazy action sequences,
sure.
But I'll tell you what, man, you know, the hardest part of sparring is like just training out that freeze moment that happens when you get punched in the face. Like first time I got punched in the face in a sparring environment, my brain just went blank. And it's like you realize how hard it is and how unpredictable and scary it can be. So, you know, the level of reality it brings there, and also just what the human body can handle. You know, there's a reason that boxing rounds are only 3 minutes. Like
sure.
Fighting is really, really hard. So it's, you know, it all comes together, and I absolutely love doing it. You know, I'm getting older, and it helps me not feel so old.
Right.
But from a writing perspective, yeah, it is fantastic.
Now, back to Assassins Anonymous. You have that killer elevator pitch. What if John Wick entered a recovery program for killers, which is just totally fantastic. So in Assassins Anonymous, you wrote an action thriller where the hero's main goal is not to kill his opponents. Can you tell us a little bit about how you adapted that premise to Assassins Anonymous's sequel, the Medusa Protocol? I mean, is it operating in the same way, or did you change perspectives a bit?
Well, so for the sequel, I kind of moved the lens a little bit to a different character and made it more about her and her history and how she got to where she is. And, you know, Mark from the first book is still there, but, you know, he's sort of achieved enough of development in his own story that it was time to kind of like start from the studs with somebody else. And that was, it's interesting because initially you think about it and you're like, they can't all have the same reason for doing this. They all have to have their own histories and their own traumas and their own pasts and all that fun stuff. So, bringing in a different character was really, really helpful. For the third book, which I just finished, it was kind of, again, it's just looking for new ways to kind of like challenge the characters and put them into situations where they have to make difficult decisions.
Okay, for tonight's burning question, why get involved with teaching at an MFA program?
I really love teaching. It's really fun because what we do is super lonely and sometimes it sucks and it's nice to be around other writers. I enjoy working with writers who are starting out because for me, it kind of feels like sending the elevator back down, like I've done pretty well so far and it's nice to be able to go to someone and say, hey, here's what worked for me and here's what didn't. Sure. And here's how to navigate this like stupid, frustrating, terrible, like heartbreaking industry. But then there's also, it makes me a better writer because there are so many things that I do that I kind of just do intuitively because that's just the way that I do it. But when I have to stop and I have to think about why I do it and then I have to explain it to someone else,
sure,
it puts it into a different perspective. And then I'm like, oh, now I kind of understand this a little bit better. And I'm glad that I have that understanding. So, yeah. It's I was really happy that Seton Hill took me because the dirty little secret here is that I don't have an MFA myself.
Right.
And most MFA programs will not take you if you don't have one. But because this is a writing popular fiction program, they were open to it just from my resume. So It was like, awesome, cool.
Yeah. So that's your first teaching experience, or have you done other things?
I've done online stuff. I work with Writers Digest. I do stuff with them. I've done classes previously for various different organizations and websites. This is my first sort of like major, like college-y experience type thing.
Well, Rob, I really want to thank you for coming on the show and being the first ever guest on the Atomic Voodoo Lounge podcast. Any closing thoughts? What's next for you? Anything you want us to check out, pay attention to, put on our calendars?
I would say two things. First is I've got a novel called Detour that's coming out in January. That's I co-wrote that with Jeff Rake, who is the showrunner and creator of the TV show Manifest, and that is super fun. And that's big, weird sci-fi mystery box novel that was a ton of fun to work on. So that's the next thing I've got coming out. The only other thing I would say is also, if anyone is listening and is interested, go see the movie She Rides Shotgun, which just came out. It was based, my buddy Jordan wrote the novel that it was based on, and the movie is dope. And I'm just very, very excited for him. It was really, really cool to like literally sit in the movie theater and be like, holy shit, my friend wrote this book. But yeah, absolutely worth seeing.
That was our interview with Mr. Rob Hart. He's looking forward to the publications of Detour and Three Hitmen and a Baby in 2026. Check out all of episode 2 at atomicvoodoolounge.com or on your favorite podcast app. This is Maxwell Vegas for the Atomic Voodoo Lounge podcast.